Hi everyone. Today, in this next interview with one of the JB alums, we'll be talking about investment banking, the life over there, the work, the package, of course, and many more exciting things. We have Shubham Deora with us, who was a batchmate in JBIMS and currently in the top firms for IB. So, hi Shubham, how are you?
Hi, Vedant. Doing good. How are you?
Doing fab, yeah, doing fab. Thank you so much for coming on this channel and giving gyan about investment banking to all our viewers so that they get motivated to join, one of the top colleges and hopefully a firm like you.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to the conversation.
Great. So I'll be asking you a few questions. The first of which would be, can you tell our viewers where you are currently working and where were you working right after JBMS?
Sure. I'm currently working with JP Morgan in their investment banking middle office division. And this is actually the company wherein I was working immediately after graduating from JBIMS. I mean, evidently, I like the role a lot. That is why I'm still with the company. And yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying the work so far.
That's it. So I'm assuming JP Morgan is one of the top companies for investment banking. And you being placed over there, of course, I mean, do teen are guys who would want to leave JP Morgan, unless, of course, it's a front office role. So, anyway, sorry, you were saying something?
Yeah, definitely the brand value helps. So I think when people say it's a question about getting the nice role or getting a good brand value, it's a subjective decision. But if you can get a nice role within the same company, nothing better than that.
Of
So
course.
I wouldn't say brand value doesn't matter. And JP Morgan being an MNC, having their offices across the world, it definitely, I mean, you can see it in their culture. And these things actually do matter once you spend uh, more than a year with the company. So I would say that it should also be an important consideration for the candidates.
I'm sure. I mean, so you're talking about the culture about the company. So my second question is something related to that. Could you talk about the kind of work you do, the life in JP Morgan, and the kind of people you interact with on a daily basis, and how's the culture overall?
Right. I mean, it's JP Morgan, so they are very selective in their process. So, of course, the people whom you're kind of working with, your colleagues, your onshore counterparts, they are all pretty much well accomplished in their field. They have all done their graduation from good colleges and they are bringing a lot of value to the corporation. So, in that terms, the crowd that you're gonna mingle with is amazing. It's fantastic, and it will actually push you to like kind of become better version of yourself each and every day. That is something which you can't take for granted. The regarding the type of work that I do, so I work in the investment banking division. I'm currently in the healthcare industry, working with the EMEA geography, so basically Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Whichever healthcare M&A deals are happening in particular in these regions, we are the team which are kind of supporting the activities and supporting our client in that. So it's a good mix of geographical diversity because I'm working with clients in London, in Africa, even in Dubai. So you get a good exposure that way in terms of interacting with people from different cultures. And healthcare as an industry is a pretty up and coming industry. A lot of focus on it, especially after COVID.
Mhm.
So I would say it's one of the places to be in. So enjoying my work as well over there. In terms of people, as I already mentioned, really smart people, but then also it's not just the people you're working with but even the clients. uh, you do get opportunities to go on calls with these clients who are like CEOs of big companies to understand how they think about their own company and about the world, how they think about maximizing shareholder value, as they put it. It's a really fascinating experience, and with each and every meeting, you're taking something back to learn. So I think that's the most rewarding aspect of investment banking. The hours may be brutal, and they definitely are. But if you are someone who has a penchant for finance and for learning new things in this dynamic industry, then I think investment banking is the place to be in.
Okay, so you talked about interacting with the top guys from different companies and also the smart guys in your company itself. So initially, when you had joined JPMC, was it a bit intimidating, as in, you finding it difficult to interact with them, you not knowing a lot about investment banking. So how did you cope up and how were you able to learn so quickly about these things?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a new experience, but I was not a fresher. I still had some work ex before my MBA, so that definitely helped me. I've seen many of my fresher counterparts facing much more issues compared to me because I had that work experience in. So that will definitely count. Apart from that, I had done my CFA level 2 before joining the company. So in terms of financial knowledge, it was never kind of intimidating to me because most of the concepts I knew. What was new for me to learn was how the processes work in an investment bank, how an actual deal flow is, what are you supposed to put on a slide, what the processes are. So I would say learning those aspects, it takes a little bit of time. Most of the people that they hire, they are generally well versed with finance. So the technical aspect, it doesn't take so much kind of, it's not that intimidating. What's intimidating is the functional aspects, how a deal works, putting in so much hours, are you ready for the grunt? Interacting with people, they would understand that you have just joined, your designation is an analyst, and
Mm.
they will kind of give you that leeway and that benefit. But it's a role wherein you're supposed to kind of push yourself every day. So what you are on day one, you can't be the same person on day 60th, for example. So it's kind of pushing yourself. So some people get intimidated. I take it as a positive challenge.
That's nice. That's really nice. So, and you talked about brutal working hours. So, a few days back, I was also talking to Shaswat, who is in IB front office, and he was also talking about brutal working hours. So, could you tell us what are the difference in the working hours when it comes to middle office and front office? I mean, is there a huge difference or what?
So it's actually a very subjective question because it depends on a lot of factors. Mid offices of JP Morgan could spread from mid offices of Goldman or a boutique Indian bank if they have mid offices. So there's no right way to answer this question. It also depends on how much your team is integrated with the front end team, which is a function of how good you're performing. Because if you're performing well, they will trust your work more and they will give you more and more work. So it's a subjective question, but then of course there's a difference. It's mid office for a reason, and front office is front office for a reason. For me specifically, my team is very much integrated, and now that I'm into the system for quite some time, they trust my work a lot more compared to some of the new joiners in front office. So as a function of that, I'm supposed to put in greater hours, for which of course I'm compensated in my variable pay. So it's actually it's like a formula wherein you plug in the inputs, and then the outputs can vary depending on the input.
Mhm.
But over the weekends, they don't touch me. But then, honestly, over the weekdays, there's no guarantee of the working hours. It just depends on the workflow. Sometimes they get done at 4 p.m. in the evening or in the afternoon, I should say, and sometimes it's even as late as 12, 1 a.m. in the night. But I mean, working hours, you kind of like if you're enjoying your work, you kind of tend to not look at it that way. Like
Right.
working hours, I have realized has become much more of a consideration for me. What's more important is the type of work I'm getting and the learnings that I'm deriving from every
Right.
project I'm working.
I think if you're enjoying your work, it doesn't really matter for how long you're
Yeah,
working. So yeah, so you
exactly.
mentioned compensation. So that is my next question, the most exciting question every interview, when I get excited. So compensation. So could you tell our audience that what is your salary at JP Morgan if you don't mind?
So disclosing the actual figures would, of course, like I couldn't do that.
That's all right, a
But
range.
yeah, regarding the range, I would say around 30 to 40 lakhs per annum is something which you can expect. I mean, this is of course including the bonus component because I'm talking about like middle office over here. And given the compensation, I think, I mean, we are expected. I mean, if they are paying you so much, then of course you're expected to work some grueling hours as well. And the learning is just a cherry on top of the cake. So
Hmm. So 30 to 40 lakhs, was it right after JBIMS or after working for 2 years in JPMC?
it's after actually working for 2 years.
Okay. So,
So yeah.
when you joined JPMC from JBIMS and right now, could you tell us approximately in percentage what has been the growth every year?
So like in my situation, you could say that the growth has been round about 30%, like around 30 to 30
30%.
within 2 years. So
Acha.
I would say that's a pretty good growth curve. And this is something which like feels like investment banking or consulting might provide you with. So that will always like I mean um, your monetary like money would never be a worry for you. Like if you're in uh, kind
Invest.
of industries like investment banking or consulting, what could be a problem is the working hours, and rightly so, which again is a subjective decision.
So you talked about your current compensation, which is between 30 to 40 lakhs. So even if I approximately take it as 35 lakhs and 30% increment every year, so 10 lakhs you're making more every year. And this is only if you are in the same company. And if you switch to a different one or probably a different role, the jump would be much higher, I assume. So in
So
next
the thing
four
is
to
that
5 years, it would reach somewhere around 1 CR.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that simple because then of course it depends on the level as well. Like in our, for example, in my company, going from a junior analyst to an analyst has a bigger hike, but then going from an analyst to an associate has a different hike. So it's actually a very varied
Average,
this
average,
thing.
average.
On an average, I would say, like when I was talking about the 30%, that was not a yearly thing for me. That
Hmm.
was more like since I've joined to now.
Hmm.
But roundabout, you could say that, I mean, you could expect a good growing curve when once you're in the company because it's investment banking. Like your designations are also kind of named that way because you kind of become a vice president after being like an analyst for 2 to 3 years and an associate for 2 to 3 years. So, like you become a vice president after maximum 6 years. Some people become a vice president after 4 years. So that steep growing curve is always there when it comes to investment banking. And monetary aspect, as I said, it's very like, I mean, roundabout figures maybe, but it's very difficult to kind of answer it because it depends for every individual.
Yeah. I understand, but the kind of money that investment bankers are making these days, it's crazy because
Yeah.
I've had a word with Shaswat. I've also had a word with Vignesh, who is currently working as an investment banker, front office, a different company. So the kind of money y'all are making, it's something else. And down the line, after 5, 6 years, I can only imagine the kind of compensation you all would be getting from the top companies. So really nice.
Yeah.
So there's one final question that I,
Just
sorry.
Just one, actually, one point. Sorry to cut you off, but just one point I wanted to add over here is investment banking is basically an industry wherein the more senior you become, the more your package inflates. It's like the 90% of the corporate compensation is taken by the VP plus people. So it's when you're talking about the initial years, yes, the grunt is more, and you are compensated for it. But once you're through with that grunt, once you reach the senior positions, it's all like basically impactful work that you're doing, joining client meetings, but then the pay is incredibly high
Now the
compared to
working
what you're
hours
making.
get better, right?
It gets incredibly better. I mean, it's just an investment. You have to go through these. Basically, you have to invest your junior years in investment banking so that you reach a VP or an ED level. And of course, I'm not saying it's like any other role wherein your working hours would be very less. It's not very less, but then the amount of packages that they're minting, the amount of bonuses they're getting,
Hmm.
it's incredibly good.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard. Even from Shaswat, I'd heard that the bonus that they get is around 80 to 150%, which is crazy. I mean, the salary itself is so high, and on top of that, if you're getting such bonuses, you're never short of money, and you
Yeah,
you
money won't be a
can do
problem.
whatever you want to.
Yeah.
So, there's this one last question I wanted to ask you. So, what should our viewers or aspirants do to get into one of these most lucrative roles like investment banking, and that too in the top firm? So, what part should they take? Which colleges? What kind of work they should do? So, could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think getting in investment banking is a very restricted field wherein it's very difficult to get into. But what could definitely help you is like doing an MBA from a top college like JBIMS. I mean, I that was one of the reasons I wanted to do an MBA because I was always interested in investment banking, and thankfully it worked out for me. I know that I mean you guys are doing a great job at it, and like I have personally kind of the like gone through the TTP materials as well, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job in making your candidates kind of realize their dream of getting into investment banking. So thankful for the work that you guys are doing for the entire MBA community. But sometimes it's like, I mean, if it's not MBA, then also joining boutique IB firms, like joining some Indian bank at a very junior level, but then getting that exposure about investment banking. The pay might not be high initially, very, very initially, but it's the exposure which counts because that is what these big firms look for when they're hiring people. There are very few candidates who have relevant investment banking experience. So if you can get an experience in one of those, like in one of these areas, then it kind of is a very big spike for you, which differentiates you from the other candidates. So that could be one of the aspects. Courses like CFA can only help you a little bit. I mean, it did help me because I was an engineer. So to introduce me to finance, make the technical aspects of IB less intimidating to me, that is where CFA curriculum helped me. But it's like, I mean, if you would ask me for my advice, I would say either get into a very good MBA college wherein such companies come with such roles, or you can join a boutique IB firm and just spend 1 2 years, get good experience off the ground. and then apply to these companies.
That's great. Thank you so much for that answer. So, guys, like Shubham said, the easiest way to get into these companies would be through the top MBA colleges, one of which is JBIMS, and we at the top percentile. We aim to provide you with the best courses, best books, best mocks that would help you prepare for such competitive exams and get into the top MBA colleges. For any detail, you have everything in the description below. Our phone number, our Insta channel, our website where you can have a look at our courses, our offerings. We've started with live lectures taken by the CET toppers. We have recorded lectures recorded by us, which includes the exact tips and tricks that we had used to crack CET. And apart from that, we have got mentoring sessions, doubt solving sessions, mocks by again made by tier CET toppers themselves. So any query, just hit us up and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much, Shubham, for being with us, inspiring our viewers and helping them the right path to IB roles.
My pleasure. It was great connecting with you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.